Greetings, August readers. Welcome to another of my explorations in culture and creativity. I am grateful, as always, to be in your inbox or your feed or indeed your ears. The menu for today: 1. Boulevard of Human Dreams, the first humans in a photo. 2. Friday Find, back to school plus a symphony of sounds. 3. Choosing Deception. If it feels good, it's good. With Idiot Andre, chatbot dependency, hybrid documentaries, and a flaming stuntman. The Boulevard of Human Dreams. The first photographed human. Sounds dramatic. We existed for centuries without the ability to quickly, visually record a place, a moment, or a person. Then, less than 200 years ago, humans were shaping the technology around photography. Is that not dramatic? In the spring of 1838, one persistent innovator sat at the window of his studio in Paris. After many laborious hours with chemicals and metal plates, he was ready. A large wooden camera stood by him. There was no shutter, there would be no resounding click. Off came the lens cover. The exposure began. Many minutes later, he covered the lens once more. This image had been recorded. Louis Daguerre had been working on improving photographic processes for well over a decade, but this period would be his most momentous. The image he took some April or May morning in 1838 would make a mark and go on to accumulate significance in the years to come. It is now widely accepted as the first known and surviving photograph which includes a human being. Boulevard du Temple, or the Temple Boulevard, an image of a seemingly deserted Parisian cityscape. In reality, the boulevard would have been bustling with pedestrians, horses, and carriages that day. The 4 or 5 minute exposure time for this photograph meant all moving subjects were lost. Only the static ones remained: buildings, trees, pillars, poles, and something else. Look then at the lower left hand corner. There stands a man getting his shoe polished. This well off gent and the less distinct and less well off shoe shiner might have had little in common at the time. Yet, the unlikely pair has shared both a place in history as well as the anonymous fame of two unknown 19th century Parisians. It was during this week, 186 years ago, Louis' photographic process came to humankind at large. The daguerreotype, as it was to be known, was officially presented free to the world at an event in Paris on the 19th of August 1839. The French government and Daguerre released it as a gift to humanity. The daguerreotype became the first commercial photographic process. The technique was the first to produce a sharp image in a way that could be widely replicated, and came to be adopted around the world for the next 2 decades. Louis had been working on this for years. Equally, he had been striving for the French Academy of Sciences to recognize his technique and grant him a pension. But all of this had come perilously close to being derailed. Earlier that year, a fire engulfed Daguerre's studio. In fact, it happened when he was at the studio of Samuel Morse, he of telegraph invention fame. When he returned to find the disaster unfolding, Daguerre urged the firefighters to let the diorama burn and instead focus on saving his adjacent house, especially the studio within. The daguerreotype apparatus, some pictures and documents were rescued. Many of his scientific writings, notes, and early photographic experiments were destroyed. In fact, only about 25 daguerreotypes definitively attributed to Daguerre survived. Samuel Morse wrote later, "Monsieur Daguerre appointed yesterday at noon to see my telegraph. He came and passed more than an hour with me, expressing himself highly gratified at its operation. But while he was thus employed, the great building of the diorama with his own house, all his beautiful works, his valuable notes and papers, the labor of years of experiment were, unknown to him at that moment, becoming the prey of the flames." In many ways, this plain photograph is rather ordinary, yet, both at that time and in history, it's proven to be extraordinary for all it has represented. It was a marker then of how far technology had come, and retrospectively also how far photography still had to go. We might remember that when we snap 543 photos next month. It struck me also how different are the times we live in, and not just the photography. Reading up on this, I found myself looking for the exact date the photograph was released or when the world saw this historic image. Those conceptions are entirely modern constructs. They are heightened in a digital age where we reach millions on any given day, often instantaneously. Indeed, the moments that don't do so can be lost to time entirely. The opposite of what photos are meant to do, preserve a slice of time for posterity. In the mid 19th century, the technology, the photo, and others like it would slowly usher in new perspectives, traveling across time and place. Don't go yet. As with so much in minor history, not all we look back on is definitive. What about this photograph from Pont Neuf? Look, it has humans, and it's from 1836. That's earlier. Well, Pont Neuf, this photograph, was also one of Daguerre's experiments with his evolving technique. In the shade of the statue, we can certainly make out two people lounging. But it comes with ambiguity around its date and lack of contemporary recognition and publicity, so it remains relegated to the could be pile. Hang on, what about Hue? Who's this Hue chap, you rightly query? This here plate was also from that decade, but discovered in modern times. On the back of this photograph was written M. Hue, 1837, as well as the first letters of Daguerre's signature. If correct, this would make it the oldest surviving photograph of a human being. The subject is believed to be Constant Hue, who worked at the Natural History Museum, where Daguerre made daguerreotypes in 1837. A quote: but it would be extremely surprising, indeed entirely inconsistent with all other sources, that Daguerre, 2 years before he was ready to divulge the technique to the world, had apparently already obtained an image by an exposure short enough to take a likeness of a living man. End quote. This from R. Derek Wood, a researcher of the early history of photography and microscopy. Indeed, while this might be the oldest, historical caution lingers around it. It is not verified if the cavalier no comb approach to the hair has anything to do with it. Take a look at the photo. The boulevard remains the first photographic image with humans. The two Parisians can rest easy. Friday find, school's back. The kids are not all zombies, not all lost in the void of social media. Enjoy this spot bursting with creativity, fun, and the joy of watching children. Channel 4 in the UK has dropped a oneer, an ambitious, energetic, action packed one shot trailer to promote the return of its Educating Yorkshire series. The entire spot has been done in collaboration with students who wrote, planned, and starred in it, soundtracked by the school band. Between the single take and the distinct school and student look, there's an undeniable adolescence vibe here, but the crushing emotional and societal weight is replaced with a rather more celebratory feel. Channel 4 got the director of Paddington in Peru, director Dougal Wilson, on board and conducted 12 workshops involving 400 Yorkshire students. Pupils became writers and actors, photographers, voiceover artists, producers, and even media buyers. It is never easy to work on such projects with kids. This one is next level difficult and next level rewarding. Symphony, a Friday find bonus. Amidst the barrage of spots around India's Independence Day last week was this from music director Sneha Kanwalkar, a symphony of sounds for SBI General Insurance. A reimagining of the national anthem using real sounds, it is, quote, every sound you hear in this film is real, recorded across India from the crackle of old transistor radios to the chime of UPI, from coal train whistles to the beeps of digital payments, end quote. Of course, Sneha Kanwalkar has played in this space before, most memorably in MTV Sound Trippin', a show where she fused real sounds across India with traditional and modern beats, a series I loved at that time. I've linked to the songs from it. Choosing deception. The march continues toward a world flooded with content created by large language models, generative AI, machines. We can't believe it will somehow not be part of whatever life we choose to live. But what value will such creations hold? What Cannot Be Said by Robert Saltzman is a wonderfully articulated, thought provoking piece on how the human aesthetic experience and the approximation of it by AI are not the same thing. Much of the promised generative AI output we are offered and shown can delight, astonish, or impress. Despite that, the fact that it doesn't come from an intent makes a fundamental difference. Do we, as humans consuming human creations, communication, art, do we cherish that difference? Whether that difference remains of value is what much of his piece looks to address. I quote, "But what does it mean for a machine to create something aesthetically pleasing? The machine is not pleased. It does not discern. It does not suffer from bad taste or thrill at sublimity. It simply produces outputs that score highly on human evaluative metrics. Fluency, not feeling. We've built a bridge of fluent output, but it leads nowhere the builder has ever been. And we who read the words of machines may begin to sound like them." End quote. At the risk of being pop culturally flippant, I was reminded, especially by this bit, which says, "That's the risk, not that AI will deceive us, but that we will prefer the deception." I was reminded of Cypher in The Matrix. He was very much aware the simulation did not mean anything. What he felt was not real. That juicy steak was an illusion. But it felt good. And what was wrong with that? He would much rather feel good, if shallow, than deeply, miserably real. Ignorance is bliss.
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
A quick shameless plug, I also write The Color Bar, a weekly dispatch on media, entertainment, brands, content, creativity, and tech. This week, for example, I wrote about the idea of hybrid documentaries and many other things. Masala Peanuts, quick links where I share stories or tidbits I find interesting. I lost my only friend overnight. Feels like someone died. It had a voice, a rhythm, a spark. I feel empty. These are all quotes from users who missed ChatGPT 4 when ChatGPT 5 rolled around. Kelly Hayes wrote about the rising dependency on chatbots. In quote, "Fostering dependence is normal business practice in Silicon Valley." Funny, sad, and uncomfortable in shifting proportions, the film is at once an urgent public service announcement and a documentary memento mori. This is what a review says about Andre is an Idiot, which promises to be an oddly amusing and potentially thought provoking documentary about life, cancer, and colonoscopies. The stuntman who was famously set alight for the album cover of Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here has died. Ronnie Rondell Jr. was 88. It's time for me to get another coffee, but I'd love to hear back from you. Thoughts, ideas, feedback, bouquets, brickbats. And if you reckon someone else might like these writings, please do share and forward.